Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast, your favorite place for strategies, stories, and insights from the world of market research. Brought to you by your host, Dan Fleetwood.
As always, I'm your host, Dan Fleetwood, and today I have David Iudica from Uber Ads. He is the head of global measurement and insights analytics there. So David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. You know, I was thinking about the first time I ever saw you, and I remember I think it was an MRMW conference way back in Cincinnati, probably 2018, 2019 timeframe. And I think you were
just starting my career at that point.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm happy that, it's kind of come full circle and we can get you on the show today. Maybe a quick background about, what you do for work and a little bit about you would be good before we get into it here.
Yeah, sounds good. So thanks. I can't believe it's been that long already. Time flies when you're having fun. But yeah, so I've been in the measurement and insights space for the better part of 20 some odd years. Started my career on the agency side many moons ago, and have migrated over to a host of different brands. You mentioned, I think the last time you and I chatted, I was at Facebook or Meta now.
Yep.
And was there for about 5 years running vertical insights and analytics globally there. Moved over to the brand side, was at Citi for a couple for a little while, and running their CX research division around wealth and retail, which was incredibly interesting. Again, at really interesting times during the sort of the history of that business itself. Was most recently at a startup that was really focused on multicultural marketing and advertising. So worked really almost as like a consultant with advertisers and marketers who were thinking about getting into the space. And I've been at Uber Ads now. It's going on almost a year, which is absolutely insane how quickly time goes. But like you mentioned before, I head up first party measurement analytics. So it's really thinking about our direct to client service. We work with a lot of our top tier clients globally. Have a great team of analysts that help support those clients globally with things like incrementality testing and post-campaign reporting, things like that. And then I have an insights team globally as well that covers off on a couple of different pieces, including really leaning into some of the amazing first-party data that we have to help advise our clients, our key clients. And recently we've added a couple of different portions to the business as well. So we're covering off on business intelligence, so a lot of competitive analytics, things like that. And also working on global thought leadership, which has always been near and dear to my heart and has been kind of a consistent part of my roles in a couple of different companies now.
I should have asked you, what are you not doing, David? I think that might have been a better approach to it.
I like to keep busy. It's it's the diversity is sort of the spice of life.
That's awesome. So you obviously have covered a lot in your research career. What are some areas that you're most passionate about in the insight space? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the way I've always seen and kind of the uniform piece of my trajectory across my career has been kind of building. I love building things, building new things. So that's what really inspires me here at Uber Ads. We're still like a relatively young company in terms of this part of the company. On the advertising side, just a couple of years old, but already a really robust business, over $1 billion in run rate. So we have a tremendous trajectory ahead of us, and we're kind of like building the entire team from scratch, which has been just super exciting. Same thing at Meta. Was really kind of building those capabilities there, joining their post Cambridge Analytica. So without its host of challenges there, and kind of really building the team out to sort of what with our new reality that was the case at that point, which was challenging, but at the same time really fun and exciting. So I think that overarchingly, I think throughout the course of my entire career, that's what's kept me really excited. I say this kind of jokingly in terms of like a variety being the spice of life, but that is really what kind of keeps me rolling. I think I'm eternally curious about an infinite number of things, and so this kind of work really fuels my curiosity and allows me to kind of venture into new spaces and building these businesses.
Yeah, that's interesting. You do a lot from thought leadership to research to ad measurement. Are you passionate about all those things, or is there one that you're like kind of gets you really excited? And if you need to, kind of hedge a little bit, I totally get it. But I'm just curious of like what really gets your, blood going here.
Yeah, I think to me it's really about helping businesses grow. So whether it's our own business or our clients' businesses, and I've always kind of looked at our team, and it's really a key part of even our mission statement when we first got on board, as we started developing our mission statement, was acting as those consultants, right? Really being those key consultants to our clients. They're confronted with a challenge. They're looking to us for building potential solutions to help solve those challenges. That's really what is kind of uniform across, whether it's insights, it's measurement, it's analytics, all of the above. It's kind of really focusing on the client first. And this is something that even the experience at Citibank was really interesting, because that was really all looking at, it was customer experience. It was really customer first view. That customer first view is something that I've kind of really leaned into hard throughout the course of my entire career, is really focusing on who's that end client, and really is who's the end consumer for all of this research. I really don't like doing research for research's sake. Like I said, I'm a very, very curious person, which is great. But at the same time, I think it needs to be a focused curiosity, because if you're not solving for something, you're kind of just building out in the ether and kind of screaming out at the window to nobody really. So I think having that focus and helping to sort of build businesses, whether it's our own business or it's the businesses that we partner with, that's really kind of what sort of is the centric function across all these different teams.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned, keeping the customer at the root of it. And I think it's easy in your, day-to-day business, and especially like the higher up you get, it's easier to like lose that focus of the customer. So I really like how you're, definitely that's an area of focus for you. So I think that's awesome. What are some areas or recent projects that you can highlight that, or that you'd like to highlight, or any innovations or studies come to mind?
Yeah, I think, again, only been here about 8 months or 10 months or so, but got the opportunity to work on a really interesting project right from the go, which was leaning into a lot of the consumer journey work that I'd been doing at Meta and even at Citibank as well. And thinking about sort of this new online food delivery kind of path to purchase, like what are tools like ours at Uber Eats like really doing and changing how people behave, right? So it's this thought of like a digital food court, right? So like you're able to make decisions in a much more unique way than you ever could have done before. And I think in today's world, I've said this a million times before, but like there's just disruption is the norm, right? That is the new norm. There is an endless stream of disruptions for our clients, and they have to sort of think about how all these different innovations are really sort of affecting their businesses. But more holistically, it's really thinking about from a consumer's lens. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? There's increases in pricing, there's inflation, there's all these different components. What does a consumer really need? They want control, right? They want to be able to have a sense of control over something in their lives, specifically making those purchases that they're making, right? So if they are able to go to an app, in our case, where you're given and afforded the sort of the capacity to be able to make the most intelligent decision possible, the most informed decision possible for that end goal. So I'm just hungry for burgers. Great. I can run a search. I can look at sponsored listings, what comes up first. I can look at offers, right? And actually think about across all these different touch points that we have within our own application, how can I become the most informed consumer as I'm making this one quick decision? And it all happens in a real split second, right? Like the consumer journey has just shrunk across a multitude of different vertical categories in our little slice of the world, especially when it comes to OFD or to online food delivery. It's really about how tools like ours are kind of changing the game. You see consumers trading up and trading down and making active decisions on, I'm hungry for a burger. Does it mean I go to a quick service restaurant? Do I go to a casual restaurant? I'm making those decisions in real time. And it's fascinating how that kind of fosters both loyalty, but then also curiosity. I think that's one of the things that we found from this study that I thought was incredibly fascinating. We're dubbing it like curious loyalty, right? Where we see like a significant portion of people are loyal to the brands, right? They keep coming back to those same restaurants and ordering from those restaurants. But a really significant portion of them are also testing things out, right? Like I said, they might be less hungry for a burger. Maybe they're hungry for a burger, so they don't really care where it comes from. It's really more about that immediate satisfaction for the need. It's really more that system one thinking that's guiding their decision-making process versus, every Saturday morning, like I order Uber Eats for my kids. So that way, like when they get up, I have a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, like a true New Yorker on a bagel, ready for them, like as they're looking to start their day, because they have an endless stream of sports and activities that they're about to engage in.
Yeah, no doubt.
The day.
So do you find that are consumers loyal to Uber Eats and the brand, or because the brand or the restaurant is on Uber Eats, they're loyal? Does that make sense? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, no,
100%.
Yeah, it's something that we even talked about when I was at Meta as well, and like here as well. It's this concept of platform loyalty, right? Are you loyal to the platform, or are you loyal to the brand? And both can be true at the same time, right? Like I think ultimately, our job is to facilitate the decision-making process and make it as quick and as frictionless as possible. Because the consumers, their objective is really pretty straightforward. They're hungry. They want to eat something specific, and it sort of depends on the use case that they're really focusing in on, what decision they'll make. So our job is to facilitate that decision-making process in as frictionless way as humanly possible. On the brand side, it gives them the opportunity to show up consistently whenever that moment arises, right? So that whether it's a very planned event, or if it's I got home really late, I'm hungry, I want a late night pizza, I'm going to order that pizza, and I want it immediately to satisfy that craving. Again, all those situations are where we help, and we can deliver that platform loyalty because we're helping to show up in that space. Brands can help build the loyalty by showing up in those key moments.
Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of, kind of switching gears a little bit, what's a topic in research that you feel isn't talked about enough? Is there something that you're like, man, why aren't we talking about this more? Does anything come to mind there?
I think it's a questioning of AI. AI is inevitable right now. It comes up in every single conversation that I've had, and I've had the pleasure of advising a couple different companies now that have sat within the AI space. So I'm a true believer in the technology and helping it facilitate. I think that the challenge oftentimes becomes a race to adopt AI. Sometimes blindly, right? So like where we don't really have a focus on like, well, what is the job that AI is specifically going to do for us, and what role do we play in sort of making sure that we have a guiding principle and a principled approach in embedding AI into all of our work streams. And so, you think about the human in the loop sort of philosophy of AI consumption or use, right? Which is something that you don't kind of give the keys to the car to an AI, which frankly isn't ready yet to be able to deliver on all of those needs. You still need sort of that human element. The way that I talk about it with my team is I love for AI to make us more into editors and less from authors. So really using the AI to kind of build that initial view. Sometimes it's really helpful for me to kind of brainstorm with it and kind of bounce ideas off of it to sort of guide my thinking. But ultimately, that thought process needs to be still at the forefront of how we develop the ideas, and then using it as a facilitator to make sure that we get to the end point more quickly. And then, of course, like so much of what my job has become is really built around automation, and how do we create tools that really give the power back to our sellers and everybody else to make sure that they can make really quick decisions as well. AI is an inevitable part of that kind of solution process, which is great. And there's some amazing tools that exist today that really help you get there pretty quickly. But again, it's having that disciplined approach of what is my perspective? Like, how do I view AI's role within my day-to-day workflow? And again, thinking about it very much like, how can I use it to really help me get from point A to point B quicker? And then also thinking about how it's going to like augment my capability, right? It's like I'm almost multiplying my output by X percentage because I'm able to really deploy some kind of more mundane tasks to an agent or something like that can really help you get to the answer quickly.
Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned that something interesting, at least to me, and it's come up in a lot of conversations I've had, is the I guess team automation or workplace automation and helping out teams just with AI, helping out teams with different workflows and things. You mentioned that, so can we double click on that a little bit? I want to get your take on it. And you mentioned this a little bit in how you're helping out your team and thinking about AI as not you said not an editor or not an author, right? Or not an editor, but more of an
Not an author, but more of an
not an
editor.
author, but more of an editor. Yeah, exactly. So are there other things that you're doing within your team to help them maybe, I would say, like intelligently adopt AI, or like, maybe that's, something like that. Like, what are you doing to help your team, like with some guardrails and things with AI?
Yeah, I think it's about setting up very clear distinctions of like where our role begins and ends, and where AI's role is embedded within that workflow. So again,
Mm-hmm.
I like taking a very product centric approach or thought process around everything. So it's that there's a user journey across every analysis that we do. There's a journey across every insights piece that we put together, or thought leadership that we put together. No matter where you go, there are spots where AI can funnel in and help you get to an end goal more quickly. But it all starts with the philosophy, right? Like with really having that structured thought process of how do I think about AI as a team? Like how should we be approaching it? Again, this thought of like building into our exercise, like every exercise, a human in the loop philosophy, where we're saying we're not giving the car keys away. We're not sort of going and leaning full hard into, well, it's an automation. It's already built. There's an AI in there, and it's embedding some insights into it. Oftentimes those are not as informed as they could be because that's just kind of the limitations of the technology right now. If we embed it into the workflow in the most intelligent way possible, and it's just thinking about, like I said, every single kind of big product that we build, and I think very much in that lens, right? So if I think about a post-campaign report, that's a product that we build. How can we build automation? How would we build agents into that workflow in the most intelligent way possible that helps us get to the endpoint, which is what we need, which is a really great high quality analysis, but also an analysis that's done very quickly. So again, if we're meeting those two kind of KPIs, then we're being successful in our endeavor. But again, having that thought process in mind as you're embedding into those workflows, and it's iterative, right? Because it has to be, right? AI is changing almost on a day-to-day basis. There's a new model that comes out. You have to really stay on top of what's really out there and what kind of helps facilitate this. There's a million and one ways to sort of optimize code today through all these different tools, but they're all taught slightly different ways. So how do you build kind of almost like a best practice, which is what we've done internally, is starting to build kind of like, for this kind of study, for this kind of analysis, what's the best practice in terms of implementing AI at different parts of the workflow.
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear that you're thinking about it with such a systematic approach, right? Because I often hear it's like, top down, you need to use AI, and it's like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? And then, but you have a very good approach, so I appreciate that a lot. What are some other, like any other trends besides AI or innovations that you're particularly excited about right now? Anything come to mind there?
I'm curious about synthetic data. Kind of goes one in it's kind of hand in glove a little bit with AI, but it is quite interesting, sort of the analytical capabilities that sort of that type of synthetic database can actually help provide us across any number of different streams, and whether or not that's even thinking about building a new ad format and thinking about putting that ad format in front of a synthetic database to help us get real-time feedback as to like, what do we think this will actually help solve for? These are all things that I'm really curious about, and I want to continue to test. I've been able to do a little bit of dabbling into it, but I think with all these innovations, it's really, really important to be open to those innovations as they keep coming in, but very critical about the nature of what it can or cannot do. And once you delineate what it can or can't do, it's wonderful, because then you can really start plugging it into that sort of in a bit more of a systematic format in terms of how you embed it into it. But for synthetic database, I think there's lots of testing that we need to do to make sure that it's representative. And in my last role, it was really interesting, from a multicultural perspective. A lot of these synthetic databases that were being built weren't really representative, right? And it sort of became really incumbent upon us to start thinking about that and helping to inform our partners. Well, how can we help, right? Like, we have a host of multicultural users and consumers that we can tap into to start help to develop that database to be more reflective of the world that we're living in today, because ultimately it's going to be so impactful to be able to have full confidence in that database. Again, I think we'll eventually get to a cleaner view of what that looks like. But again, asking those questions and within this space, I think as leaders within market research and research more holistically, we really need to be asking those critical questions about the data that we see. Just because a tool seems really cool and can maybe help solve for something really quick, oftentimes, I'm not too much of a skeptic, but at the same time, if something seems too good to be true, it's oftentimes it is.
It's very, very good to live by right there.
Exactly.
What do you, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think, the models and for synthetic data was only as good as the information you put into it, right? So if, like you said, multicultural, kind of underrepresented, so the model wasn't great. What have you seen, and have you used synthetic data recently? Where are you at in do you kind of dabble in it, or are you actively pursuing it? Where are you on that scale?
Very much in the fledgling stages on our side, just thinking about kind of meeting with folks who have been in the space and kind of testing. I think I'm a big test and learn guy. And so we want to make sure that we feel super confident in anything that gets implemented. But there's a ton of companies that are sitting in that space today. And I think starting to have those conversations now is really interesting. And again, that's going back to your very first question. I think that's kind of the things that gets me really excited about showing up to work every day. It's just you get to talk about some really interesting potential solutions and really think about how to take that same level of approach that we've taken to so many different innovations in the past. And maybe, I don't know if it was the conference that you and I chatted at that I kind of gave this talk, but I talk about this all the time where, a lot of this seems really fresh and new. And this is kind of very earth shattering kind of technologies. We've been confronted with this before as an industry, right? Where these new technologies come in, they disrupt completely our workflows and how we think about building research. And we've gone to the other side of it, stronger, just more productive, more capable of having really great solutions to some of these questions. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking to it. I'm not sort of thinking about it from a doom and gloom perspective, but really thinking about how we start embedding these things in real time. But again, having that critical mindset is crucial to make sure that the solutions do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you. It's AI is not going anywhere, right? So you better learn how to use it and optimize it and get it into your workflows. Otherwise, I think the people that don't might be left in the dust, And to your point, it's nothing new, right? We had think about when phone surveys came on the scene, that was new. When online surveys came on, that was new. So it's just another new piece of technology, right? So
and those critical questions is what helps. To me, having had the pleasure of taking on a number of different new partners coming in, that's where you have the best relationship with those partners. Is when they're super receptive to the feedback. Because to me, again, my mindset is that building mindset. And so I think if we can start building together towards a solution that makes more sense or is going to be more fine-tuned or refined, and if I can help refine it, that's really kind of what I lean into. And even as I've taken on companies to sort of help advise them as well, that's really what I lean into, is really helping them kind of fine-tune those solutions to make sure that they're kind of meeting the customer demand.
Yeah, that's awesome. David, what's a piece of advice you'd give someone looking to improve their research or just looking to improve their work in the research space? What would you say?
I think I'd give them the advice that my very, very, very first boss gave me many years ago. Was he told me to sort of don't be an expert in just one thing, right? Be a generalist, know as much as you possibly can. If you grow expertise on one specific discipline, that's wonderful, but you can't sort of take your eye off of everything else that's going on within the space, because at the end of the day, you're helping to solve for your client's concerns or your own concerns as a client. Oftentimes you need to sort of exercise multiple disciplines in order to get there. That thought process as well, that curiosity really helps keep you ahead of the game and kind of looking around the corner at what challenges you might be confronted with in the future. So if you become if your superpower is coding and things like that, wonderful. That's really great. Challenging yourself to sort of understand a little bit other parts of the business, competitive intelligence, building a BI mentality, just some of those pieces where you can hone some of those skill sets as well. There's lots of transferable skill sets across the entire spectrum of research, which is really amazing. It offers an amazing opportunity for you to grow as an advertiser and as a marketing researcher. that you can really start to implement as well. And to me, like, I learn by doing. That's kind of how I learned the best. And if I am sitting in that role, and if I put myself in those shoes, I can help understand, help inform where I want to land in my career as well, right? Like, where do I want to ultimately go, to be able to really meet my internal kind of perspectives of like where I want to go from in terms of the career process. It's not always just about getting the next job and continue to sort of rise up the ranks, which is great. I think it's about satisfying that curiosity as well, and making sure that you're showing up as that curious researcher, the same as you were, in my case, 20 some odd years ago.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's great advice. And then, as we come to a close here, is there a book, podcast, or resource that's helped shape the way you think about research that you can kind of point people to?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of like the HBR stuff that you kind of think of normally. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name right now of the podcast, but there's one on the Ringer Network that's really about kind of just new things that are emerging, and just kind of like challenging the thinking around different spaces as well. I'll look it up in 2 seconds because I probably have it queued up. Plain English by it's Derek Thompson. I think he also has like a blog post called Stratechery, and it's really, really interesting because it takes a lot of the things that are happening today. He talks about AI all the time. He talks about a lot of different things that are kind of influencing the culture, which again, it's so important to keep in mind because, with Ozempic and Wegovy and all those things, he talks a lot about that. Those are innovative. Those innovations are having like just massive changes across not just that one business, but a multitude of different businesses. And in order to understand like what's really happening out in the ecosystem, getting that level of knowledge is really helpful because it just makes you a better analyst writ large. So yeah, that one I think is one I always listen to whenever.
I'll have to check that one out. I haven't heard of that one before, but it is everything's very connected, right? So something, everything kind of is all connected in the space, like you mentioned, Ozempic, and there's other examples too that I can think of where, this one shift affects many different industries or companies, right? So it's interesting you mentioned that. That could be a whole nother podcast, I think, David. But
I think I've always thought of things as like going from a macro to micro perspective, because every macro level shift has trickle down effects into a multitude of different behaviors. It's kind of like seeking out on-demand solutions, which is like what our platform provides. It's all stemming from some of the things that are happening from a macro level need that we're ultimately satisfying. So understanding what those are today, but then also where those things are going, is so crucial to just stay ahead of where the customer demand is going to go.
Awesome. Hey, David, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. It was great to talk to you.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. If you like this, subscribe, follow, and reach out to us. I know David is really active on LinkedIn, and you can probably find him there. I'm active, but yeah, feel free to share this podcast if you found some value, and we'll see you on the next one.